We were talking about what we were talking about. Dreams was something we were thinking of doing.
Yeah.
I was telling you that I had that freaky thing happen to me 2 years ago, right before we started talking about what's her name, Eleanor Parker. That I
Yeah.
had like I had a dream. It was like one of those kind of early morning things. You have those weird dreams where you're sort of awake a little bit, or you've woken up and fall back asleep kind of thing.
The liminal state. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, I don't remember what I was dreaming about. It was some kind of dream, and this image kept coming of this black and white photo of this woman, and the name Eleanor Parker kept going. And I was like, is this some famous actress? I don't know. And I was like, but very specific face and name. I didn't know who Eleanor Parker. I'd never heard of Eleanor Parker. I don't think I'd ever seen. Maybe I'd seen her, but I didn't know I had.
It was just her face, not her.
Her face, but it was like one of those kind of glamour headshot.
Oh,
like
yeah. Okay.
those 40s black and white glamour headshot type of things. And her name. And I just kept going. But what I do remember, even in the dream, and as I woke up, I was like, why was that so insistently like ringing throughout whatever this fucking dream was Eleanor Parker. Eleanor Parker. And like this face. And I was like, what the fuck? And I told you, like, the day went on, I got up and I was wandering around, and this buddy of mine who lives out in California, who's a big movie buff, is always writing me to be like, have you seen this movie? Have you seen that movie? And he writes to me, and of course, now I can't exactly remember. He goes, have you ever seen this movie with Robert Mitchum? And I was like, no. And I said, who else is in it? He goes, it's a great movie with him and Eleanor Parker. This was like a few hours afterwards.
Holy shit.
When I was like, wait a minute, who? And he was like, Eleanor Parker. And I was like, so I looked up Eleanor Parker, and I'm like, that's the woman.
It was her face.
Yeah. And I was like, why the fuck? And so to me, that's almost more compelling evidence of like premonitory dreaming. For a long time, and only really until recently, for a long time, I never really dreamed about people I knew.
Oh, really?
No. I would sometimes dream about famous people that I didn't know, but I didn't dream, which I told this to somebody one time, and they said, well, that's a sure sign you're probably a psychopath. Never dreaming about anybody I know.
You needed another sign.
Kind of crazy narcissist who's just like doesn't give a shit about anybody else. But I do find it fascinating, those incredibly distinct strangers that you dream about. I do, at least. I will see incredibly distinct people in my dreams. And I can remember one time having a dream where I saw a guy, and it was something jarred me in seeing him. And I thought, this is an actual person I'm seeing in my dream. And then I came up with my whole crackpotty theory that they are actual people and our dreams are intersecting, and that this person may be dreaming about me too. And it's like, that we're actually, so a lot of those people are actual people in the world. I'm just running into them in this crazy space.
The theory you have sounds a lot like what we think the ancients, even our ancestors, probably believed about dreaming, which is at night when you go to sleep, your psyche literally does go out into the world and actually experiences other stuff. So one psyche could be meeting another psyche in another space and then returning back. And you've actually encountered somebody's, spiritual,
it doesn't seem totally dippy to me.
No, that's the main reason why people believed in an afterlife, and the idea that the soul would go on somewhere was because of dreams. So it certainly was reasonable and seems kind of reasonable. Oh, I mean, I did have a dream recently. My father passed away last year, and I think that dreams are extremely therapeutic, like you said. And I had dreams of him when he was very old and weak and frail, and they were very upsetting dreams. And then I had a dream with him when he was sort of younger and robust. Yeah. And we talked and laughed and embraced. Yeah. And afterwards, I felt much better. It was like I'd had this great therapy session. Yes. And I'm thinking this must be part of the function of dreams,
I used to have a lot of dreams about my father, and he was young. And his hair was black, and he was svelte, and he was young. And it was like, And I can always remember, I remember having very vividly one where I was sort of in this castle and I was helping him escape. And we got out and I remembered I was like, yeah, you made it, man. You made it. And it was really and in the dream he got shot at one point, but I kept looking for the wound on his body and it wasn't there. And I was like, oh, you made it, man. And he was young. So it was, yeah, that's interesting. And it was very like, it was good. It was a good.
You felt better afterwards in waking life too.
Yeah. That Rudolf Steiner guy has a whole thing about sort of communing with the dead.
Oh, I don't know.
Really interesting. And it's like that you stay in contact. You can stay in contact with the dead, maybe through dreams and through kind of meditative, a kind of reaching this kind of meditative state. But the interesting thing is that I think is cool, and that I kind of is that to some extent they keep developing as you keep developing. Like they're still growing, and you're kind of helping them get along, and they're helping you get along. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that too. I think I would have laughed at this in my 20s and thought, oh, so naive and wishful thinking. And now that I'm older, I'm like, yes, it's very, maybe it is wishful thinking, but the therapeutic benefits are not imaginary. Those are real.
There's a real use to wishful thinking. I'm beginning to think it too, but I'm like, am I just a big pussy who's too afraid to be like, I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I'm not an atheist. I actually, am I just fucking hedging my bets? Probably. What the fuck? Yeah, I mean, I definitely, but I find this is something I think is funny too, is that I'm like, that thing of like, this, I just was thinking, that thing of like, when I was younger, I would have scoffed at it. I was thinking this recently because I was looking at, I happened to be reading Kafka, just happened to be looking at some Kafka. And I was like, this is so funny because when I was younger and I really got into this stuff, and I was like, 16 or something, I think 17 when I first read Kafka, which is kind of like good age to be reading Kafka. Yeah. It was, it totally jibed with my worldview. I was like, everything's really fucked up. Everything's so dark and fucked up and everybody's fucking with you. But it seemed grotesque and it seemed expressionistic and bizarre and like very hyper real or surreal or whatever, and fantastical in a way. I mean, it's like very bizarre and stuff like that. And then there was a long period of time, I think, where I was kind of like, yeah, that's like stuff that I read when I was 16. I pick it up now and I read it now. The same thing with Beckett. When I look at Beckett, the same thing. I'm like, this doesn't seem weird at all. It seems like documentary realism now. I'm just like, yeah, this is exactly what life is like.
Yeah, is that because you're so much weirder now as an older person?
That's an excellent question. I hadn't thought of that. I thought, well, it could be that. It could just be that the world, how I see how the world is so much more fucked up. Or it's not actually that weird when he's writing. It's like, it's really pretty accurate depiction of the world.
I think you're right. Like the difference is, what do you think about the unconscious? And there are people who think, well, there is no unconscious. You look at sort of neo-enlightenment people like Steven Pinker, and they think like the unconscious, that's some old Freudian shit. Everything is sort of rational, transparent, and it's need to be good. But people like me who think the unconscious is the large part of us, and it's dark and ugly and brutal and sadistic.
Yeah.
We want that shit to be like controlled, censored, like not for other people, but I don't want to give full, I don't want to air that out. I don't want to open the jar on that, whatever metaphor here we should use.
Yeah.
There's ugly stuff in it. And that's part of like the human, set of ingredients. And so you do need to sort of control that stuff.
Well, a guy like that, in theory, he's saying like whatever I can pull out of the jar is transparent. I can see everything in the jar.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everything is potentially can be examined and like what? I mean, it's like, but if say I want to like flay people's faces off their skulls and wear them around, like, What's his thing with that? That's just, that's
Who's
what.
cool with that? Like, where did your
I mean, where does that fit into his thing? That's just something's dysfunctional in the jar, in your jar, and it's
okay,
like,
yeah, okay, good. So for them, and I mean, we're cartooning him big time here. So,
that's going to be a good cartoon for.
yeah, but he thinks that like when you
Oh,
have
you're cartooning him. Oh, I see.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you have like sadistic impulses, the Enlightenment people think that's just a pathology, and we can fix that.
Yeah.
But it's a bug in the system. But if you're a Darwinian or a Freudian like I am, that's not a bug. That is the system. Like,
Yeah.
aggression is part of the innate equipment for survival, and it bursts out at the wrong time, but it's part of the equipment you need.
Yeah, surely at this point in human history, I think we can see that the whole kind of enlightened point of view just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? And it really is just fucking doesn't work. None of it, nothing, no product of it works. Nothing. No. I mean, democracy, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Let me ask you this about your dreams, because
yeah,
when I was young, I felt like I had dreams that were a lot like a Dali painting. They were very random. Mm-hmm. But as I've gotten older, my dreams are much more pedestrian. Like, they don't get weird like that anymore.
Now, that's really funny you say that, because I've been complaining lately to my girlfriend, because I'm like, I don't have the crazy dreams so much anymore. Infrequently, but I'll still have them, but not as frequently as I used to have them. And they are way more sort of like, here I am at work, and like, oh, here I go again, it's just really,
making breakfast.
Yeah, it's just like, I have a friend who's claimed his dreams have always been like that. He's one of those wackadoodle people I know, and it's that guy who I do the bibliomania thing with.
Oh yeah.
And
Germany, right?
He's always claimed to me, he's like, nah, my dreams are just I'm having lunch. And I'm just like, I don't believe it. And he's like, and I'm like, well, maybe he's clearing his head out with the crazy writing and artwork and stuff he does, But yes, I definitely used to have way more bizarre dreams. I used to write them down, and it is amazing how extensively you can remember them when you start doing that. And I wonder if that might unearth the weird ones again if I started writing them down again. If I would start pulling stuff out or something like that.
Don't you have to write it down like right away? Like it slips away if you don't write it down like immediately.
Yeah, although I think the more you did it, the better you were at retaining it. It seemed like. But yeah, I think the idea is you should try and sort of write it down as soon as you sort of wake up. But that was a really interesting thing.
Well, this is an interesting thing I was thinking of in relation to this, because like there's when you dream, you're having that rapid eye movement. And so people thought like the REM is the dreaming, but then they've discovered that actually they're related, but they're not the same thing. So kids apparently have enormous REM activity, but no dreams, or very little dreams under like age 5. And then they start having dreams. And then the way they figure this out is like, they wait to see you're in these sleep studies and your eyes start to go into REM, and then they wake you up, which is fucking irritating. But
really? Okay, anyway. And they wake you up and they're like, what were you dreaming about?
Yeah, exactly. That's how they do that. That's how they do it on adults, kids, everybody. But what the theory now is that maybe what's happening is you can't dream until you begin to actually hear lots of stories. And what you learn is stories, like your parents read you stories, you watch TV and movies, and eventually you get this kind of scaffolding in your mind of how a story works.
That's so interesting.
And then your dreams connect to that scaffolding.
You think, I also wonder this, because it's like, do you think retroactively you put more of a narrative onto the dream, or does it have one? Or do you think, that's so interesting? Mm-hmm. That's really fucking interesting, because it's like, do you before the fact have the ability to create the story, and therefore you make a story out of it? That's so wild.
You ever have that dream where you're having a dream, and you all of a sudden there's a guy with a jackhammer nearby, and you wake up and your alarm's been going off for just like a couple of seconds, but it's this huge story,
long thing where you've been like, It just happened to me with something. But that's really weird because that's that thing of where it's like the split second of you hearing something, it's assimilated. I guess it shouldn't be surprising because our brains work so fast that it's like, it shouldn't be, but it's really strange.
Yeah, the sense of time is different.
Was your dream it's almost like your dream's anticipating the sound coming from outside.
It feels like
much as the sound coming into it and changing it. It's weird. And that's that weird openness thing to being like, my brain is wide open and I'm like anticipating something. That's so weird. And I know that like when I would do that isolation tank.
Oh yeah.
You cut everything off. And it's like when you first do it, when you first start doing, and then even like oftentimes when I would first just get in to the tank, your brain goes kind of batshit for a little while because it's just like I have to think about something. Yeah. So you start thinking about it. You're just dredging up shit that you're like thinking about some dude from fucking high school that you're like, why am I even thinking about that guy? Because your brain's just literally like just pulling anything it can out of anywhere. Yeah. It's crazy because it just has to be thinking something.
Yeah.
It's like you're so trained into thinking something that it can't handle it. I mean, meditation's obviously the same thing, but this is even weirder because you're literally have everything, any other data being cut off, and your brain is literally just a brain in a jar. And it's
panicking.
And fucking panicking.
I'm part of this group I'm part of the scientific advisory board of the Mind Institute in Berlin. And they have this huge grant from the German government to study psychedelics. And so it was a really cool conference I went to. And there was a sort of presentation about this, that it looks like, we're on the cusp of knowing whether we're generating this DMT within us, because there is evidence of it in other mammals. And it looks like, you can get it via ayahuasca and other, you lick a toad or something.
Yeah, this toad licking thing is getting big now.
But but it's like endogenous opioids. Like you have a kind of natural heroin in your own body that you can release, and they think it might be the case with DMT. Wow,
that's really cool. Well, my question to you is, why aren't we in Berlin just like tripping our asses off with a bunch of
Yeah, I'm telling you, road trip next year. We got to go,
dude. Yeah, we got to go to that. We can have a live remote stream from there. Like, please, are you kidding?
Honestly, they're always asking like, any volunteers, and I'm like, maybe I should.
yeah, right here. You bet.
I'm a little nervous now, though, to do. I did a lot of hallucinogens when I was young, like in college.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I had my fair share of bad trips too. And I just feel like now, I don't know, like my own life is too dramatic and melodramatic for this shit. I don't need any help, realizing.
I think that's true. And to get, to go back to a point made earlier, it's like Kafka now seems like realism to me. Know that I need acid.
Exactly.
But I definitely, I'm completely of the opinion that the last wretched acid trip I had in college, I say, honest to God, I used to be a sharp guy. After that, I was never the same. It literally, it's almost like I could feel something in my brain break. I just was like, I just broke my brain. It was just like, I fractured my brain. I was like, and I had never been, and it grew back to a little bit, just joined, not exactly right. And I've been about 30% off.
30%.
Yeah.
You used to do like tensor calculus.
I was a sharp guy.
Trigonometry at high level.
You name it. I was always at the top of my game. And after that, not quite so sharp anymore.
There's something that's changed about the dynamic now. Like now you have this kind of like, I don't want to say professionalization, but there's this kind of yuppification where people are microdosing and still getting down to their high-tech jobs and trading on the stock market, microdosing. And I'm like, you motherfuckers need to take enough so that you lose the
stop going to the stock market at all. So exactly. Stop this bullshit. That's really true. No, this isn't supposed to make you better at being an asshole like that. You have to take this shit and drop the fuck out. It's not fucking everything up for the rest of us. That's really funny, though. That it's like, no, you assholes. This is supposed to make you stop being guys who work at a hedge fund. It's not supposed to make you better at it.
Yeah, exactly. You need to dismantle the whole self and fucking rebuild
the system, you assholes. You found a way to fucking hijack that. It's so true.